Yeah, beautiful rifle, huh? Winchester 1866 replica. One of the most gorgeous lever action rifles ever made, no doubt about it. One of the most gorgeous rifles ever made, I'd have to say. Beautiful, beautiful. That brass receiver. Most of you can identify it right by that brass. Let's take a couple shots with it and see if it will shoot. If I can see the sights. This is a replica made by Uberti, imported by Taylor's and Company, and boy do we appreciate it. I think I'm going to start with a 2-liter, like that orange one that got away the other day in a video. I guess we better put one in the chamber. Yeah, you're not going to get away today. Neither is he. How about a 12 ouncer? Nice. Oh. I think the sights are okay. I'm not sure. There we go. I throw it out to him. Wow, how much ammo do we have? Oh, a cowboy. How appropriate. Let's use the sights. Yeah, you still have to use the sights, even though it is a really shootable rifle. Yes, this is the 1866 Winchester reproduction, and it's a gorgeous firearm. This, among firearms enthusiasts, which are many of you out there, right? Or you wouldn't be watching this. This is considered one of the most attractive and desirable firearms, really, ever made. And partly because of when it was made, 1866. Yeah, that's why it's called the 1866, the Winchester 1866. Gorgeous gun. Now, this is a reproduction. You know, Uberti makes beautiful reproductions, and Taylor's and Company brings them to us. And one of the advantages of having a reproduction in this particular model is that you can shoot it, because this was chambered in this little cartridge right here, the 44 Henry rimfire. And you know, we went over that in an earlier video. That's an actual 44 Henry cartridge that I bought at a gun show, paid dearly for it, but I thought it'd be worth having, just in the interest of history. It is rimfire, and it's 44 caliber. That's what this was chambered in, the same round that the Henry rifle was chambered in. So, and all the way up through the production cycle of it, up into 1898, it was a 44 Henry rimfire. And again, where do you buy that today? You know, just not really available. So it's better to have one, if you want one to shoot, that you can fire, you know, in 44 special or 45 Colt, or something that maybe you hand load for, or that's available today, right? And whereas all other aspects of the firearm are pretty much authentic in terms of the way it's made. So I should probably be loading, but see that loading block? It's interesting. Elevator brings the rounds up, drops them in there. You don't really have a standard ejector. It just pops the empties out the top. It's a very interesting rifle design. Now, when I mention Henry, I'm gonna give you a little bit of history. I won't bore you with too many details. We want to get a Henry rifle here too at some point, and I'll give you some more of that boring history at that point. But whenever I say Henry rifle, I'm talking about the Henry that was patented in 1860, that was around and even used in the Civil War, especially by the North, in limited numbers. It was really the predecessor to this firearm. This is basically an improved Henry. And again, that was designed by Benjamin Tyler Henry, who worked in the same factory that, you know, Winchester owned, and Smith & Wesson were involved in, all this kind of back in the day. The modern company, Henry rifle, I'm not sure what they're called exactly, but they make, you know, really nice lever guns. They sell a lot of them, and they're an American company, and, you know, more power to them. And we've reviewed at least one of their rifles. They're great guns. So not talking disparagingly of them, but just remember, Henry, the real Henry, is a different proposition. Okay, goes back into history. So let me throw some more rounds in. This thing holds 14 rounds, I think, if I counted correctly. I think my 1873 just holds 13. Don't tell anybody. Oh my gosh. You know, an assault rifle right here with a lever on it, right? But, so, again, not to give you too much boring history, but you know, this is 1866. Most of you probably know the American Civil War ran from 1861 to 1865, and you know, most soldiers were carrying a single-shot musket, right? Rifled musket during that war, all right? But during that time period, we had all these other firearms innovations in progress, and the lever gun with a tubular magazine goes back some of the early designs. There were a guy named Walter Hunt and Lewis Jennings back in the late 1840s were working on something along this line, but it was very crude and very awkward and you know, just complicated, overly complicated. And Smith & Wesson, you've heard of those guys, I'll bet, Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson. They bought some of the patents, they acquired the rights to it, and they started a company called, I believe it was Volcanic Arms, or Repeating Arms Company, something like that, Volcanic. And they started making a pistol. It was mainly a pistol, and it was about this long. You may have seen one in a gun show, and it was, you know, about this long. It looks like you just cut this part off of this, or actually off of a Henry rifle, because you don't have the wood forearm. And it was like a short lever gun, kind of like a mare's leg in a way, except even shorter. And it was called the Volcanic. And the reason I have this mini ball out here is that it used a round like that. It used a hollowed out bullet, much smaller than that, I think 32 caliber or 25. And they had the powder just in the back, the base of that bullet. And that's how it had operated. That's what those early versions of the lever guns used from Hunt and Jennings. Well, Smith & Wesson acquired the patents to those designs, and Smith apparently was the real genius between those two, I guess. He developed a primer to include with it, so that was essentially the first cartridge. And then you may already know that Smith & Wesson, they developed the first cartridge, the 22 long rifle, in the mid-50s, 1850s, and then they applied some of that technology to their work on the lever guns. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's shoot this a little bit more. And again, 1866 was a very good year. Let's try something across the hill. Bring up around. I have a little trouble seeing the sight clearly. All right. If I can get one on the red plate, though, I'm in the ballpark. I love that sound. Try a pig. Nice. Nice. Oh, sweet. Sweet. Now, we don't have a lot of power here. Well, I say that. It's a 250 grain bullet, but still. Well, it's not moving all that fast. Darndest thing, you got to hit them. Puts it down. If you can get the 250 grain bullet out there, it is moving on. Or I mean, it has a lot of weight behind it if it gets there. Let's try, let's see. Oh, I think there's some cinder blocks on top of that barrel. If I can, pieces, if I can get my sight. There we go. I can see my sight. Yeah. I need a red dot on this thing. What else need? Oh, I see some close-up targets here. And there's a pot. Nice. Click. Oh man, nothing like a lever gun. But as I was saying, and I was so rudely interrupted by this guy that wanted to shoot, the Volcanic Arms Company is where this is where a lot of the good stuff happened, okay? Again, don't want to give you too much history, put you to sleep, but the Volcanic Arms Company in the 1850s, great things happened. You got Horace Smith, Daniel Wesson there. You've got, I believe Henry was there, Benjamin Tyler Henry, that invented or improved and came up with the Henry rifle. And guess who was their major stockholder? The biggest stockholder in that company, Volcanic Arms. You guessed it, Oliver Winchester. So you got all those geniuses together in a way, and that's when good things started to happen. That's when Smith especially was working on the cartridge, this crazy hollowed out bullet that was called a rocket ball. he improved that. He figured out how to put a primer on there too, so at least it was all in one piece. And then he started experimenting with copper cases, came up with the 22 rimfire cartridge, which is what we still use today. Uh-oh, 12 ouncer, thought he got away. Think again, buddy, think again. There's one hiding. All right. I don't know if I could pick him off or not. Okay. What else needs to be shot over here? Oh, you know what we've not done? We've not gone gong hunting. Let's see if we can catch some of these big heavy slugs lumbering into the gong. Nice.